Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. Just want to do a quick couple of housekeeping items. First of all, I want to thank my partner in all this, the IIBA, International Institute of Business Analysis of Tampa Bay. It's a great group. If you are interested in joining a group, they're a great group to join. There will be a PDF and a recording. And again, I apologize. Today's a really busy day, so you won't get the PDFs right away, but you will get them before the end of the weekend. So I'll get that out to you as well. So let me go ahead and start. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Richard Frederick. I'm an instructor. I teach a course called Requirements Development Management and Project Management. I have two classes, both for business data analytics, the language of data. The courses are specific to they're traditional courses, traditional requirements class, and a traditional project management class as far as their framework or their structure. But the topic and the case is specific to data. Why? Because data is basically the digital transformation that you hear about is about data, and data is the new oil. So I just developed some courses specifically to that arena because there really aren't any out there. That's why I did it. So this is the fourth in the series of webinars that we're doing that are the foundations of the class that I teach specific to requirements. If you weren't in the beginning early ones, just a real quick brief about me. I owned a company in the 1990s that did workflow automation. I think it's completely amazing that the digital transformation is now called flow. So I'm just laughing that, and Bob, who's online with me, we've been around so long that we've seen this whole thing come full circle. But we are in a situation now where our future is that we are working with next to, aside, in addition to humans, we're going to be working with technology as a member of our staff. That's your digital assistant, eventually morphing into an intelligent assistant. This class is specific about requirements. I haven't done this in the past, and I probably should have done this from the get-go, but why should you care about requirements? Basically, it's the primary source of problems on any project. And I tell everybody that is interested, if you're struggling with requirements, you're not alone. Everybody struggles with requirements. Every place I've been, no one has mastered it. And again, you'll see it says, requirements are the primary source of errors found at acceptance testing, meaning what we thought we heard the stakeholders say and what they claim to have said once we get through the process and bring everything back for user acceptance testing can sometimes be different. And for a lot of people, that's very frustrating, as it should be. The challenge is how do we resolve that? Or probably even more importantly, why is it so difficult? That's really what this particular webinar is about, is I'm going to get in and kind of talk about language, natural language, and just the understanding of what's involved in natural language processing will begin to give you an idea of why it's so complex and so hard to get requirements done, quote, right the first time around. So let me just touch with the idea that the problem is with natural language, or the problem with natural language. And natural language is how humans communicate to each other. I call it nuanced ambiguity. And natural language or nuanced ambiguity in documentation introduces avoidable business risks. When we write statements as analysts, I tend to call them narrative. We write in a more flowing pattern. We listen to our stakeholders talk to us in a natural kind of flowing language. So we take notes and then we write that in a little bit more of a formal approach, but not nearly as formal as what test cases look like. If you were in the previous couple of webinars, you know that I'm always trying to get people to think in terms of writing in the format of a test case. But again, those are different webinars. These business risks are very costly, even catastrophic to the organization involved. So when the language isn't clear, it's very expensive when you have to go back and repair it. The challenge to elicit and abstract structured language requirements, to abstract structured language from stakeholder business requirements. I put this slide up because, again, it just goes to show you how complex language is. You know, you got synonyms, you got homonyms, heterographs, homophones, heteronyms, and homographs, and they all have different meanings. For example, homophone, same pronunciation, different meaning. Homograph, same spelling, different meaning. Heteronyms, different pronunciation and meaning. Synonyms, where most people are used to synonyms, but these other items cause a lot of confusion with trying to understand just language. You know, heterographs, different spelling and meaning. These are challenges that we have to face. Now, why does this matter? Because in the requirement stage, there's zero cost to fix them. You haven't done anything. There's no effort that's been expended. And so at this stage, this is when you really want to get things fixed, not after testing or worse, after deployment. The goal is to try to get everything resolved early on. So if you understand why it's going to blow up and what to look for, hopefully this webinar will help you, you know, as all these webinars do, get a better idea about, you know, what are some of the things that can happen and why are they happening. So this one is really more about why are these things occurring? So I found this really great bit of information from the SAS Institute, SAS Institute. For those of you that aren't familiar with them, they are a company based out of the Research Triangle in the Carolinas. I think they're worldwide. They've been in this business for a long, long time. And they did a presentation on natural language processing. So I borrowed a lot of the information from them because I thought it was really useful to talk about semantics, morphology, syntax, and linguistics. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with me? I'm just sitting across from a stakeholder writing down what they want. The more you understand language and ultimately where we're going, and I think that this is something that a lot of analysts don't really talk about or no one's told you, but the plan has always been to have intelligence in our computers. It's always been there. And we are slowly but surely making our way to an environment where we have someone on our staff that's actually a computer. So you can see the photos on the right-hand side of the screen. And at the very bottom, I have an image of an intelligent assistant. That's Cortana from the game Halo. So that was the best example I had of a person looking thing. But if you're a fan of Star Trek, there was Data, the cyborg. The concept is that as we write requirements, what we're really doing is talking to intelligence. That's a little off, but that's ultimately where we're going. So the requirements that we're getting from the human need to be parsed down into a format or abstracted or decomposed or whatever term you want to use into a language that is almost like you're communicating directly with information systems, which are test cases. That's why I'm always trying to get people to think in terms of test cases. This particular section is to talk about just the building blocks of language. Semantics relates to the meaning of words and statements. Morphology is the study of the structure and form of words. Syntax, the study of how words and phrases form sentences. And linguistics, the structured science of text. For those of you that might be new to the industry, the concept of natural language processing has been probably one of the original ideas behind artificial intelligence that was documented in the artificial intelligence journals back in 1980, which was the beginning of the artificial intelligence journaling that was, you know, done at a university level. The idea behind all these things is that old. I mean, we're 40 years, and it was the first kind of hurdle that we've been trying to jump over. And it's fascinating because anybody that's been tracking this, really in the last 5 years, you can see, actually in the last 10 years, you can see that the percentages have gotten stronger and stronger and stronger as to the ability of the machines to parse through and understand human language. Semantics relates to the meaning of words and statements, the meaning of it all. Approach to meaning, semantic networks, deductive logic, rule-based systems, useful for classification. The next, or one of the, yeah, it's either the next one or the one after it. We're going to be talking about the semantics of business vocabulary and rules. And as I presented in the last section on structured English, business rules drive decisions, and if the business rules aren't correctly interpreted, then the decisions are wrong, and it's a domino effect. So semantics are really, really important. And the challenge is that everybody's got different ideas about what meanings are. So trying to come up with a collective group of semantics that are shared across all these different communities is very challenging. We're going to cover that in a later webinar. Morphology is the study of the structure and form of words. So you're understanding just words in general. A noun might have a prefix, a stem, and a suffix. There's all these different parts to the words themselves within different languages. So you've got all these different, structures, and you got forms of words, and you have to recognize that all of this also changes based on languages. So that's really fascinating. Syntax, which is probably a very common term that most of us are familiar with, the study of how words and phrases form sentences. For example, the Bank of Canada will curb inflation with higher interest rates. So here you're breaking down, rather than just the word itself, you're actually breaking down sentences into individual words that are then analyzed independently of each other. We're going to be talking about syntax in a later webinar when I talk about the easy approach to requirement syntax, IEEE EARS, which is a really great webinar. Hopefully you'll be on that. Linguistics is the structured science of text. So now this is where we're really starting to get into the AI components of language. So once you get the meaning down, once you have the syntax down, once you have the structure of the words down, then linguistics goes through and helps you analyze it. What a lot of new analysts who may or may not know about data. So really quickly, data is really just two things. It's either structured data, which means it's been organized, or it's unstructured data, which means it's not really organized. The vast majority of the data in the world is unstructured. So the work of the computers is spent, a lot of it is spent trying to create structure through categorization. Text is unstructured, ambiguous, and language dependent. The linguistic approach does not treat a document as a collection of words. What it does is it's trying to eliminate ambiguity by extracting structured concepts. So concepts are the DNA of text, concepts. So the idea behind linguistics is the machines are looking for concepts and then pulling those out and building on that information. So the way it happens is that you go through texts. Let's say a giant Word document is an unstructured data document for the most part. And there's all kinds of words in there. And the computer will then go through and read or parse, i.e. read the document and assign parts of speech tagging, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, determiner, noun, verb, coordination, participle, stop word, to all the different components of all the sentences that are within the document. So for example, and we're just going to go through a 3-step concept extraction example. Step 1, part of speech tagging. So it says using a tool like LexiQuest Mine is a great idea for any organization that is interested in maintaining information on competitive intelligence. And you can see underneath each word. So first of all, the computer had to go through and parse out and put every single word in its own little box and then assign a component to it. So these components up here, so you can see nouns and adjectives. So we got nouns and participles. So using a verb, a participle, a noun, an adjective, a noun, a verb, a participle, you get the idea. So the first thing it's got to do is got to parse through, figure everything out, assign it a part of speech. Then what it has to do is it takes that information and it goes back to its repository. And what's interesting is, for those of us that are like me with a lot of gray hair, the repositories have grown unbelievably in our lifetimes. It's just amazing what, you know, we went from a meg, 1 meg file drive sizes to 5 megs to 10 megs to just really unlimited data. And as the repositories have grown so large, the ability for the machine to figure out what you're asking or what you're writing has grown as well. So because it now has a much larger data repository in which to extract concepts and do comparative analysis. So it says matching to known patterns. So this idea that it's created a pattern, what we had as a sentence is this pattern, and it can now compare that pattern across an infinite, almost infinite number of data sources, just information that it's got available to it, to extract what it's looking for. And it says there's 32 known patterns for English, just English. So again, out of this, it says NCDNN. If it went through this whole big pattern structure to figure out a concept. So reading the sentence and extracting the concept using a tool like LexiQuest Mine is a great idea for any organization that is interested in maintaining information on competitive intelligence, and it extracts the concept competitive intelligence. Concepts are noun-based and can be longer than one word. Again, this is important. Language is important because it drives rules, which we're going to come to later on. We're going to talk about rules. I'm pretty sure next week is the rules, and then after that is the requirements structure, easy approach to requirements syntax. But this is really the piece that I was trying to get you to. And the reason I brought this up and the reason I bring this up in the class is I think it's really important as an analyst to be aware of why we're doing what we're doing. I think it's very non-intuitive for humans to prepare for training their replacement, which is an intelligent assistant. And I write about this where we don't realize we're training our replacement, but just the fact that we're doing the work is training our replacement. And the replacement, I'm not saying it's going to completely take your job away. As a matter of fact, I guarantee your job's not going away, but I also will guarantee that your job is going to change as an analyst. The intelligent assistant is still going to be command driven, but will leverage vast repositories of data to provide feedback that helps you come up with better information in which to then turn around and feed the intelligent assistant. So it's this self-driving circle that keeps rolling through. So in summary, let me just go back to this. And again, I apologize. This is a short one and I have a kind of a hard break at 12:30. So we're going to keep this one short. Semantics relates to the meaning of words and statements. Morphology is the study of the structure and form of words. Syntax is the study of how words and phrases form sentences. And linguistics is the structured science of text. Okay, so again, as an analyst, I think it's really important for you to be more aware of how everybody's communicating. As I mentioned, you know, the tendency, and it is a natural tendency, I don't blame anybody for this, is to just sit and listen and take notes and kind of regurgitate what they wrote or what they're saying, and you write down your notes and hope that you got not only what they wanted, but the meaning of what they wanted as well. As you get further into requirements, you're going to realize, as I have, that it's really complex. And I always, again, I tell everybody, don't underestimate or don't be frustrated by the fact that it's really hard. It is. It's absolutely the hardest thing in business analysis is requirements. Absolutely. It drives everything else. And that's why it's so important that we spend a lot of time understanding it. And it is very complex. on top of the fact that you've got all of these different industries, and you've got engineers and doctors and lawyers and professionals who have their own taxonomy and their own subject matter expertise. So as an analyst, I don't think it's your job to be a subject matter expert on every topic that you're communicating with your subject matter experts on, but you do need to be a subject matter expert on talking to other subject matter experts. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's really what I tell everybody. I don't necessarily know everything that I'm being asked to do. It would be impossible. But a good analyst doesn't have to know everything. You're really a jack of all trades, master of none. You just have to be good at eliciting information from your stakeholders, whatever way that you have available to you. I teach you that in more detail, how to do that in the course. I don't really get into it here in the webinars, but that's it. Are there any questions? Any questions on this? Thoughts? Are these good? Have you guys been learning anything from these webinars? I'm scaring you. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prep you. Yes, there are recordings, and I will get them out to you. Let me go ahead and do this again. If you haven't already sent me an email, please send me an email, and I will send you both the PDF and the recordings. I apologize. The recordings have taken me longer to put together. You guys can talk. You can text or talk. Yeah, I'm just writing down the list of everybody that's here. So the next one, the next two are going to be, like I said, a little bit more complex, building on these topics here. All right. Let's see. All right. So if there's nothing else, I will pause the recording here.